Christian, how you doing? Welcome. Glad you can join us. Mr. Redondo, how you doing, bro? Thank you for joining us here. Hi, babe. Glad you guys can all make it. Good stuff, man. Hope you're having a happy Monday. Gonna give it a few more minutes here. Hey, Ari. Welcome. Glad you could join us again. It's at 1:15 now, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We'll do a quick little recap, and then we are going to be moving on to love language number 2 in the series. Hope you guys have been picking up on this stuff. I hope you guys started reading the book. Good stuff. And so before we do a recap, I'm going to go ahead and get started and say a word of prayer for us. Father, we thank you so much, Lord, today again for letting us come together, Lord, to learn these vital rules, Father, and tactics and strategies, Father, of how to have a successful marriage, a successful relationship at every level, Lord, to give you honor and glory, Father, because that's what marriage is. It's a reflection of who you are and the love that you have for us. And Father, right now I ask you to take this word, Father, bless each one of us. Father, use my mouth, Father, and my words and my mind to convey this message, Lord, and communicate this as effective as possible, Lord, and that you bless and put this word in everybody's heart. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you guys for joining here again. I really appreciate your support, and I hope you're really getting something as much as I am from this, because this stuff is really good meat. But anyway, just to do a quick recap and get started here, we're talking about the book The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Very basic, very good, very well written, and very understandable. So get a chance, get in there and start reading the book if you haven't already. But we've touched up on, we're on chapter number 5 here, which chapter 1 covered what happens to the love after the wedding. Chapter 2 talks about keeping the love tank full, the need for us to feel loved, and the need for us to love others as well. We were created to be relational beings. Chapter 3 talked about the falling in love experience, how important it is to make the difference between the time that you're falling in love and dating and courting and following the rules of engagement during that time, and differentiating that from the time of actually beginning to live out the love process or the marriage itself, and moving from the falling in love period to being in love and walking in love and reflecting his love. Thank you guys for joining here. I appreciate that. And so that was chapter 3. Chapter 4 we started 2 lessons ago, and it had to do with love language number 1, which has everything to do with our words and the words we speak. We had a few scriptures about that, defining how important our words are and the things that we say and how we will give account. And so it's one of the most important things that we should pay attention to in the way we speak to each other, the way we communicate in every relationship. Very, very important. If there's no communication, then it's nothing but a breakdown in relation and relating. And so love language number 1, being that it spoke about words, it covered the subjects of giving words of affirmation, which are built to motivate people's desire, words of encouragement, which are also created or are given to inspire your partner, your relationship. The third one was kind words, speaking kind words to each other, making sure you're aware of the fact of not just what you're saying, but how you're saying it and with what tone you're speaking it. We talked about that, and that's one of the biggest things we are so careless about, maybe, and just we haven't paid attention enough to the fact of how we speak, and the messages we want to give are distorted and messed up because of the way we say them or speak them, and so we're really not communicating effectively what we want to communicate. And then we talked about humble words, how there should be a difference between giving the person an opportunity to respond to your needs, as opposed to responding because they're scared of how you're demanding. We spoke about humble words make all the difference between communicating your desires and requesting it, as opposed to trying to communicate your desires but demanding it, and how a request of love is effective, and a demand a demand just in general, that's very mean, I guess, is the closest word I can come to, is not effective at all in trying to get your partner to communicate the needs that you have in your life for them and with them. And then we briefly touched on how within the subject of words, within the language of words, the first love language, there's also different dialects, meaning that words are not the only way to communicate, or most people, or a lot of people don't necessarily need words of affirmation. There's other ways to communicate words, be it in actions or the way you do things, the things you choose to do for each other, gifts, which can communicate that as well. And so we'll touch up on that a little bit, but that was just a quick little recap of what we've gone over. And we're moving on to love language number 2, which is quality time. Quality time. Love language number 1 is words. Love language number 2 is quality time. As I said a little bit earlier, some people's primary love language, the language that they're used to, the love language that they need to fill their tank of love, is verbal. They need to hear words of affirmation. They need to hear words of encouragement. They need to hear words to be able to connect the meaning in your life. But there are some people who that's not their primary love language. Their primary love language is the time that you spend with each other. That's what communicates most effectively your love for them. That's what fills their tank, is not necessarily the words you speak, but the time you spend with them, and the quality of that time, and the quality of the words that are spoken during that time. This is really, really important for us to identify what each other's primary love language is, so that we can effectively connect. And so, like I said, for some people, focused time and undivided attention is prime and essential to when and how they are able to receive and understand that love language. While a compliment to one person might totally, encourage them for a year, it might not do the same for another person. For them, they need to actually spend some quality time sitting down and seeing your love come through your actions of the time you spend, as opposed to just hearing it come out of your mouth, they're all important. None of them are more important than others, but they're all important. But it's important for us to identify who learns with what and who communicates with what. And so, what is quality time? Today's day and age, it should be a question that you guys should be asking yourselves, as I ask myself. What is quality time? What does quality time look like? With today's microwave generation, fast food, everything is go go go. No time to sit and eat, no time to spend that would necessarily fall under quality time. Everything's like, give it to me now or I'm out of here. Communicate it with me now or I'm out of here. And so we live in a fast-paced society with a fast-paced microwave mentality. And, I think there's such a big element that relationships have lost because of this influence that we find in today's society, that people work too much and their attention is so scattered that it's hard for people to focus on specific things, in particularly their relationship and the communication they have with their spouse. And so what does this quality time look like? Well, let's just give a few examples, okay? Because there's something that the book talks about that says being present doesn't mean that you're actually spending time together, okay? What that's speaking to is a proximity. Just because you're sitting next to me doesn't mean you're spending time with me. You know, just because you're in the same room doesn't mean you're actually spending time with me. And so, let me ask you a few questions. Is sitting together watching the football game with your wife or your kids, and the rule is no interruptions or no talking aloud. Is having everybody sitting there watching the football game, is that spending time with your family? Is that spending time with your kids? Is that spending time with your wife? It's a rhetorical question, something for you to think about, because I've been challenged to think about this. You know, the whole presence, being there with me, but not being there. And so, is that what quality time looks like? Is that what spending time with somebody looks like? How about having dinner together with your wife or your husband, and while you're waiting for the food, you're both sitting on social media, on Facebook, catching up, you know, making sure you're checking that everybody's latest status, answering emails, whatever the case may be. But while you're waiting for your food, you guys are both, you know, on your phones. Is that spending quality time with your spouse? To say something to that, you know, it's really sad going to restaurants today and you look and, you know, it's people are just sitting there just staring at their phones and nobody's talking to each other. Very few. Most of the people that I see talking to each other are older people, you know, seniors, you know, people middle-aged that, you know, really aren't too savvy with technology. But it's just sad to see that, you know, 75% of people are just, you know, looking at their media and catching up. And while they're there trying to, you know, spend time with each other, they're paying attention to other people's lives through their social media and not paying attention to each other. And so it's really, really sad. So how does quality time look like for you? Well, hey, you know, if you missed something in this lesson for doing that right now, then I can't help you with that. So anyways, yeah, it's something that's become a habit for us. So what else here? Going to events that only one of us enjoy. You go out on a date and you take your spouse somewhere that you want to go to because you enjoy it, never taking the time to find out if they're going to enjoy it. That's important. That's important, because if you're trying to invest into your marriage, into your spouse, into your relationship, then you want to be intentional and proactive in doing something that's going to help your relationship and your marriage. But if only one of you is benefiting from what you're doing, how much is that really spending time or benefiting your marriage? Going to the movies, going to the theater, going to an opera, going to a symphony. Is that spending time with your spouse? I don't know. We're gonna talk about that, because if your attention is not on the one you're supposed to be spending time with, then who are you really spending time with? And so, case in point for this introduction is, if we're going to make our marriages and our relationships work, then we need to stop making excuses for why we don't speak or understand our spouse's language of love, why we don't understand their primary language of love. If you know clearly that you don't have a clear connection or communication of love with your spouse, then and you really want to make your marriage work, and your heart is really in there, then it's your responsibility to stop making excuses and stop trying to cop out of it, or stop trying to find ways to justify why you don't and why you're not putting forth the effort to learn their language, to learn what moves them, to learn how you're able to fill their love tank. Okay, it falls on us. And so learning to speak their language is your responsibility as an individual. It's not your spouse's responsibility to teach you. It's your responsibility to learn them, because apparently it's you trying to love them, correct? And so it's your responsibility. Again, we talked about how love is something that you're responsible for, proactively and purposely putting into practice. And so there's a quote in the book that says essential aspect of quality time is togetherness. I don't mean proximity. Togetherness has to do with focused attention. What does this mean? That spending time with someone means togetherness, okay? And it doesn't mean being together in the sense of proximity of you guys are in the same place together, or the same, or distant, or even next to each other. What it means is that you have focused attention on each other. Makes all the difference. Because you can fall into the deception that you're actually spending quality time with your spouse because you're sitting there watching a movie together. But the quality time that this book is talking about, this love language of quality time, is not anything to do with that. And so, well, since we're on the subject of togetherness, let's speak to that. Because our first subject within this quality time love language, there's going to be a few subjects here. So I'm going to break down this lesson probably in 2 or 3 sessions, because I think there's like 6 points that fall under quality time. Today I'm only going to cover 2, and on Wednesday I'll move on to probably the rest of them. If not, we'll finish up on Friday. And so we're talking about the togetherness of quality time. Okay, what does this mean? Togetherness has to do with focused attention. Your attention is focused on the individual that you're trying to spend quality time with. What does this mean? Does this mean that you guys sit there and just ignore everything and everyone around you and gaze into each other's eyes and just lock eyes and don't turn away for a specific set amount of time? And while the kids are screaming, "Mommy, I'm hungry. Daddy, I need help with my homework," you guys are ignoring the kids because you're locking eyes and spending time with each other? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Even though there's nothing wrong with that, if you want to lock eyes and just gaze, and say nothing, I mean, that'd probably be pretty cool, but you'd probably end up laughing and having a laugh fest like me and Alana usually do. But no, it doesn't mean gazing into each other's time interrupted. What it means is that whatever has your attention, okay, at that moment, is what you're actually spending quality time with. In other words, whatever has your attention has your quality time. So if you're sitting there watching a movie and the movie has your attention, your quality time is being spent with the movie. If you're sitting there watching the game together side by side and the game has your attention, then the game has your quality time. Okay, if you're sitting there together and you're checking Facebook, your spouse doesn't have your quality time. Your Facebook has your quality time. And there's something really important to notice here. Okay, because we can be tricked into really thinking that we're investing time by sitting there watching movies all the time, yet never actually investing in each other. And so what does this mean? What it means is that whatever activity that both of you are engaged in, or the person you're spending time with, whatever activity that you're involved in is only the vehicle, okay, that creates the togetherness experience. This is what quality time should be. That whatever activity you're involved in, it should actually be the one producing the experience, okay, of togetherness. For example, if I sat down on the floor and with Angelina, with my youngest baby, and decided I was going to play ball with her, and she's going to sit on one side and I'm going to sit on the other side, and I'm going to roll the ball across the floor, and she's going to stop it and then roll the ball back to me, and I'm going to stop it. "Hey, Jose, how you doing?" Thanks for joining, bro. And then she rolls it back to me, and then I stop it and roll it back to her. Well, what's going on there? Well, we can say that the ball, okay, actually has the attention, because for a moment there, while I catch the ball and roll it over to my baby, I'm focusing on the ball rolling to my little girl. But what's also happening is not just that the ball is being rolled and the attention is going to the ball, it's also involving my daughter, who I'm rolling the ball to, okay? And when she catches it, I acknowledge her and then wait for her to roll the ball back to me. And so what's happening is, even though part of our attention is focused on the ball and rolling it, right? It's also engaging both of our emotion and togetherness. It's creating that emotion and that atmosphere that says we're playing with the ball, but we're playing together and we're focusing on rolling it to each other. And it's a moment that's being created. Same thing with an older child, with Wesley or Eamon or one of the girls. If I decide, hey, let's go throw the football around, or let's go play some catch. Hey Ray, how you doing, bro? Good to join you. Thank you for joining us. If I decide to play catch with one of the boys or one of the girls, again, my attention is temporarily focused on throwing the ball, making sure the ball is straight. I'm not lobbing it or messing up. Yeah, for that moment, the ball has my attention. But again, throwing the ball to my daughter, to my son, is actually creating that moment of togetherness, that we're here together, throwing the ball to each other and playing catch, and we're focused. So the ball throwing is the vehicle that's creating the emotion of togetherness at that moment. So we're focusing on each other using the vehicle of the ball and of the activity of ball throwing. And so what this means is that spending time together, it requires a common pursuit, a common focus, a common point of reference. Both of you should be interested, involved, and engaged in the activity in order to qualify it as spending time together. So, and I hope you guys are catching my drift. You guys following me? Give me some hearts if you're following me. Thank you. Blue hearts, green hearts, pink hearts, purple hearts. Thank you guys. And so yes, this is really true. This was really just like, wow, this was really eye-opening to me, because for so long, so many years here, I've fallen into that same deception that I'm spending quality time. Let's sit down and watch a movie. Well, it's we're both watching, but our attention's both going to the screen and never to each other. And so I don't want to get stuck there. So togetherness is one of the elements of quality time. Make sure that togetherness is part of your quality time spending. If you identify that your spouse's primary love language is quality time, then make sure that togetherness is part of that. Okay. A second part of what falls under quality time is quality of your conversation. Okay. As I said earlier in the last lesson, that the love language number one, which has everything to do with the words we use, it also has a lot of dialects, a lot of ways of using those words or communicating that message through different dialects that fall under words. But it's a whole different way and a whole different spin. It's a whole different way of using words, and it's a whole different spin on how the message is being delivered, or what the purpose of the words is. What do I mean? Well, words under the subject of the love language number one, which has to do with words of encouragement, words of affirmation, words of, let's see here, kind words, humble words. All those types of speaking, they have to do with what you're saying as an individual to your spouse. In other words, they're reciprocating what you're saying from your mouth to affirm them, to encourage them. Your kind words are coming across with love because they're kind. Your humble words are coming across with love because you're requesting and not demanding. Okay, so words that you use through love language number 1 have to do with what you're saying, what you're speaking. Okay, but quality conversation, okay, has to do with what you're hearing from the individual. Okay, words of affirmation are what you're saying and the quality of what you're saying to them. Words, the quality of conversation that you're having has to do with how you're listening, how you as the individual, not the speaking. This time it's not about what you're saying, it's about how you're speaking. Hi. Hi Tia, how you doing? You're with my mom. Oh, Tia Kali. Hi Tia, hi Mom, how are you? We're talking about love language number 2, quality time, and how we spend time with each other. I'm glad you guys can join us. Late is better than never, huh? Love you guys. Thank you guys for joining in. And so, quality conversation, it has everything to do with what you are hearing from your spouse and not saying to your spouse. Okay? So what it means, it's not a casual conversation. Quality conversation has nothing to do with the casualness of just dialecting, just talking back and forth about random things. It has everything to do with your intentional ways of hearing what they're saying and what you're actually responding in correspondence to what they're saying. Okay? And so let's define this a little bit more. Quality conversation has everything to do with sharing your experiences. It has everything to do with sharing your thoughts, sharing your feelings, sharing your desires in a friendly and uninterrupted way. Okay, this is where listening skills come in. Quality conversation has everything to do with our listening skills. It's a moment where you're sharing experiences, but in order to convey that you're listening, you have to listen to those experiences being shared. And so there's where the quality comes in. So what does this mean? This means that if you're going to have quality time with somebody under the subject of quality conversation, then you should know that it's time to be quiet. Okay, it's time to shut up. As like tell myself, Angel, shut up. Okay, this is the perfect time to shut up. It's time for you to be quiet, because if your mouth is moving while the other person is trying to communicate, then you're not listening. Okay, your mouth is moving because you're thinking about what you want to say to them. Therefore, you're not processing what they're trying to say to you. So if you're a good listener, you're a good zipper-upper. Okay, something that's really hard sometimes. It's a time to listen. It's a time to not just hear what they're saying, but to listen. What does listening have to do with? It has everything to do with understanding what they're saying. Okay, when you're listening to someone, you're actually understanding what they're saying. And when you understand somebody and what they're saying, you are able to effectively reciprocate, okay, what they're saying or what they're, gesturing, whether it's an action or a word, a communication. In order to reciprocate effectively, okay, you have to be listening intently with an understanding of what they're saying. So this is quality conversation. What does reciprocate mean? Well, I picked up the definition here. The definition for reciprocate, it means respond by making a corresponding action or response. Okay? What does this mean? It means you have to acknowledge what you're hearing from the person, okay? But in order to acknowledge what they're saying, you have to be listening to what they're saying and paying attention and understanding to what they're saying. Okay? This is really important, guys. I can't even emphasize how important this is if you're going to have a good quality conversation with somebody and be able to communicate the love that you're trying to communicate in that quality conversation. You have to acknowledge what they're saying. And this is not a time, especially for men. I'm talking to the men here, okay? Because we're the ones that seem to have the biggest problem with this, okay? This is not a time for you as a man, because we naturally want to find a solution, okay? Create an opinion, or instantly start going into advice mode. Because we men have this natural thing that as soon as we hear our family member or our wife come with a problem, they communicate that there's a problem, we instantly want to move into fix-it mode, okay? And this instinct doesn't allow us to stop and actually pay attention and listen. And because we don't, we miss out on that opportunity to convey the message of love through quality conversation, where if we understood this principle, we would know and differentiate that there are times where women just want you to listen. They're not telling you something about a problem. Even if there's a problem involved in the conversation, they're not coming to us with the problem every single time because they actually want an answer or a solution or a fix-it. A lot of times women, they come with the problem and they have the answer, okay? But they want to talk to you about what's going on. And so a good rule of thumb is, when you're listening, don't be thinking about a solution. Don't be thinking about what opinion you're going to come up with, what great word of advice you're going to come up with. Be quiet. Listen to what they're saying and how they're asking. And you know what? Just to be safe, wait for them to say, what do you think? What would you advise me? Wait for the advice request before you start launching into advice mode and counseling mode. I'll be the first to confess, that is hard. That is hard because I don't want my wife to struggle with something. I want to find a help for her. I want to be a helper and a solution there. But my wife doesn't always come to me to talk to me because she wants my help. She wants me to listen. And that's been a big problem for me growing up and learning how to. This has been a big lesson for me. And so, men, important. If you want to destroy your marriage, then ignore this. Don't become a good listener. Always respond and cut her off and come back with the great advice that you have. Okay? But I promise you, if you don't learn to listen, okay, you can break down and destroy your marriage, because listening to your wife is a great way to communicate how much you love her. Okay? Again, get to the book. It gives more details about this technique. Okay? So quality conversation has to do with our acknowledgement of what we're hearing from them, and not necessarily coming up with a solution, an opinion, or advice as a response or reciprocating. Okay? Quality conversation has everything to do with focusing on our genuine desire to understand the person's thoughts and feelings and desires. Okay? To be having a quality conversation, you must be able to communicate that I'm listening to you, okay? And that's what I want to do. I'm hearing your thoughts. I'm understanding your thoughts, okay? And I'm understanding your desires. That's what effective communication or quality conversation looks like. If your wife never ever hears that, if your husband never ever hears that you understood what they're talking about, you heard it, you listened to it, you understand their feelings, and you understand their desires, you have not communicated effectively, okay? And you have not shown effective skills behind what is considered a quality conversation. And so, just to bring it to a close here, there's this great quote that Gary Chapman has in his book, and it says, "Many of us are trained to analyze problems and create solutions. We forget that marriage is a relationship, not a project to be completed or a problem to be solved. Listen to that. That is an awesome, awesome message. Many of us are trained, we're mentally trained to analyze the conversation, okay, and analyze and find the problem in the conversation and then go immediately into creating a solution, okay? And that's very important for us to really, really identify because we've forgotten that marriage is more than just finding problems and creating solutions. It's not a project. Our marriage is not a project. It's not a problem to solve. It's a time of building, molding, creating opportunities to convey our love to each other, our communication to each other, to fill our love tanks, and to successfully communicate, I love you, no matter what's happening in our life today. And making sure that we're both staying full and understanding that we are here, we're together, so no matter what happens, we are in this together. I got your back, you got mine. So these practices are very important. So to say that, this is an introduction to love language number 2 that has to do with quality time. Again, if you haven't gotten the book, on my links, you can find the PDF file of the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Get to reading it. Because there's so much more. I'm just sharing little pieces, the main points of each chapter. And again, you're going to get the full sense of it, the full understanding if you get the book and start reading each chapter. As I said, next on Wednesday, I will come back with the next part of this love language number 2, which is quality time. And we'll continue this lesson together, okay? All right, y'all. Well, thank you guys so much for listening in. I really appreciate it. I hope you're learning something. I know I am. I know this is going to make my marriage stronger, my relationship stronger with my wife. It's already working. If you don't believe me, you can call her and ask her. Hit her up on Facebook. She is my witness, and she can tell you that I'm not lying. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys all. I ask you to pray for us, and we'll be connected again on Wednesday at 1:15. If for some reason you can't join in the broadcast, I will be posting this to my YouTube page and to my Facebook page as well on End Times updates. Okay? All right. Love you guys. Have a good day. Happy Monday, and we'll be talking. God bless. Love you guys too.